Hello, everyone, and namaskar. So, today's podcast is a continuation of the reading of the book titled Anandamurti, the Jamalpur Years. And this is a reading of the 29th chapter titled Education, Relief, and Welfare. It must be borne in mind that as long as a magnificent, healthy, and universalistic human society is not well established, humanity's entire culture and civilization, its sacrifice, service, and spiritual endeavor would not be of any worth whatsoever. By January 1963, Baba's plan for a large-scale rural development project at Anandanagar were underway. Dr. Sachinandan Mandal shifted his medical clinic there from Kirnahar. Other volunteers soon followed. What they found when they arrived was part jungle, part stony hills, filled with snakes, scorpions, and unbroken solitude. Nothing was available in the local villages, other than eggplant and a poor grade of rice adulterated with stones. Supplies had to be brought from the nearest town in the one train a day that stopped at the local station, Pundag. If the volunteer missed the train back, he would have to wait in the station until the next day, or else undertake the 10-kilometer hike through the brush with the supplies on his back. After several months of work, a small contingent from Anandanagar, led by Sachinandan, went to Jamalpur to see Baba. When they got an opportunity, they asked Baba what Anandanagar would be like in the future. Unable to visualize that desolate area as a team in development project and Anandamarga headquarters that Baba had said it would become. Baba called one young volunteer forward and asked him whether he would like to see London or Anandanagar. Much to Sachinandan's annoyance, he replied that he wanted to see London. Baba told him to close his eyes and concentrate. Then he touched him on his forehead and asked him to describe what he saw. He began describing the buildings of a huge city. After a few minutes, he asked Baba, "How can I know if this is London or not?" "Foolish boy," Baba retorted. "Can't you read the signboards?" "Yes, Baba," the boy replied, with a sheepish smile. Finally, he located a sign on one building that said, London. "Okay," Baba said. "Now you will see Anandanagar as it will be in the future." He began describing a busy place with numerous projects, beautiful gardens, and many buses and trains connecting it to the outside world. Sachinandan and his companions were satisfied that they wouldn't be stranded in the middle of the jungle forever. Now that the development of Anandanagar was underway, Baba informed the Margis in the beginning of April that he was creating a new wing to oversee the social service projects. He called it ERLS, the Education, Relief, and Welfare Section. He announced its formation during the Sunday Darshan. Afterward, he called a meeting of the principal Margis, during which he elaborated in detail the work of the new wing. Anandamarga education, he told him, should focus on the all-round progress of the individual. Its motto will be Savidyaya Vimuktaye. Education is that which liberates. It should be as cheap as possible and extend to the village level so that the children would not have far to travel. No distinction will be made between rich and poor. The relief section will create a team to respond in times of natural and man-made disasters. This team will pride itself on its rapid response to unexpected calamities and in its ability to reach affected areas that other relief agencies do not reach. All medical professionals should be encouraged to be de facto members of this team. In times of disaster, all local Margis should consider themselves members of this section and be ready to volunteer. The welfare section will be responsible for establishing permanent welfare projects, such as children's homes, medical clinics, and so on. When Baba finished detailing the activities of each section, he asked for secretaries to be nominated to oversee the work. Pranay nominated Astana for education, Kedar for relief, and Dr. Ramesh for welfare. In the weeks that followed, Baba met with each of the new in-charges and gave them guidelines for the development of their department. When he met with Dr. Ramesh, he asked him to establish a children's home as his first welfare project and gave him detailed instructions about the running of the home. The children will never be referred to as orphans, Baba told him, and our homes will not be called orphanages, because no one in this world is an orphan. In other children's homes, they send the children out to beg. This will not happen in our homes. Our workers will beg if necessary. They and the local Margis are responsible for meeting all the requirements of the children. The children's living standard should be the same as that of middle-class Margis and their children. Within a short time, the first children's home opened in Patna, under the supervision of Akori Himachal Prasad, then Additional Superintendent of Police in Patna, Sambudhananda, formerly Asim, and Dr. Ramesh from Ranchi. The second home opened at Anandanagar shortly afterward, and others soon followed. Baba gave the same impetus to the establishment of the education wing. With the inauguration of Eros, the opening of schools became an organizational priority. Margi educators, under Asthana supervision, began developing an Anandamarga system of education and a curriculum for their schools. They met with Baba, who gave them guidelines, both for the running of the schools and for the educational methods they would use, just as he had done with the children's homes. As was to be expected, Baba emphasized the spiritual and ethical aspects of a child's education. In Prout's educational system, emphasis should be given to moral education and the inculcation of idealism, not only philosophy and traditions. The practice of morality should be the most important subject in the syllabus at all levels. The sense of universalism should also be awakened in the child. Etiquette and refined behavior are not enough. Real education leads to a pervasive sense of love and compassion for all creation. He used the letters of the word education to create an easily remembered reminder of some of the fundamental principles of Anandamarga education. E for enlargement of mind. D for the acronym DESMEP. D for discipline. E for etiquette, S for smartness, M for memory, E for English, P for pronunciation, U for universal outlook, C for character, A for active habits, T for trustworthiness, I for ideation of the great, O for omniscient grace, N for nice temperament. After this, Baba would make it a regular part of his program to visit the new schools and homes whenever he went out on DMC tour. In the meantime, Baba continued his literary and philosophical work during his lunch hour dictations. In May, the second volume of Human Society went to print. Human Society Part 2 was a book-length treatise on Baba's theory of the social cycle. It began with a philosophical analysis of the law of social dynamics that had many of the disciples scratching their heads until Baba's abstract language descended to a plane they could understand. The opening pages began in this way. The existence of the relative factors of time, space, and person is substantiated in the field of cognition, and the cognizant bearing in its inertness is the highest stance of these factors. The inherent dynamicity of an entity, depending on the existential collaboration of another entity, or in certain cases of other entities, in which case immobility becomes of indefinite character, is called its movement, or gati, while that of an entity independent of other entities is called its immobility, or agati. When this relative movement loses its adjustment with the temporal factor, it may be called a state of pause. In a limited sense, staticity. The movement of an entity in relation to the witnessing faculty may be called its accelerated or retarded movement, depending upon the degree of its actional expression. The question of whether or not movement and inertness are absolute is a knotty problem for both science and philosophy. In fact, just as dynamicity is characterized by the stigma of relativity, by the same logic, inertness is also characterized by the stigma of relativity. So from an absolute point of view, if the existence of movement is denied, the existence of inertness or existential faculty will also have to be denied. When the observable objects do not seem to change place, judged by relative standards, we call that state a state of inertness. But in such circumstances, the movement of the observer and the observed entity within the macrocosmic arena remains beyond the comprehension of our crude and subtle minds. That is why the so-called state of inertness cannot be called absolute inertness. In individual life, the supreme stance is the state in which the causal mind or astral mind remains inactive. We cannot call the disembodied state of mind the supreme stance, because in that case, the seed of dynamicity is still active in the cosmic mind and the cosmic corpore with the help of the cosmic operative principle. From this we can deduce that the supreme stance can be attained only when the seed of psychic functioning has been demolished. Unit consciousness, when it's self-dependent, it is dependent on others also, views the transposition of objects, and only that part of movement actually comes under the category of motion. When the self-dependent movement, as also the dependent one, giving up its effort or failing in its effort to exert, surrenders to the state of motionless, such a condition indeed is called cessation. Apparently, all kinds of movement in this express universe are linked with the state of pause. Thus, every action is systaltic. The systalticity is an attempt to find stability in a state of pause. Pause is only a temporary state of inertness. Full expression occurs only after attaining momentum for movement from the state of inertness. No action is possible without momentum attained from the state of inertness. And thus every action, roughly it is also called movement, must be systaltic or pulsated by nature. In the same way, unhindered expansion or enhancement and unhindered contraction is impossible in the realm of mundanity. The manifestative bearing of action or movement is directly related to the relative factors of time, space, and person, and the contracted bearing is an attempt at detachment from the temporal factor. As a state of contraction is entrenched in inertness, the unit entity loses its awareness of the temporal factor. After comparing systaltic movement to a trek across a series of hills, where the ascent brings one to the state of manifestative pause and the descent to systaltic pause, Baba embarked on a lengthy discussion of the concept of movement, momentum, and death, before finally showing how this same movement governs the birth and death of societies. He thus provided the philosophical underpinnings for a subsequent analysis of the social cycle, in a manner that was characteristic of his love for pure philosophy. One morning in early June, Baba arrived at the Jagrati about 9 o'clock to give a short class. With the help of a world map that was affixed to the wall, he started giving a historical overview of the global situation at that time, pointing to the different countries with his stick. When his stick fell on Canada, he stopped and asked Arun to go to the kitchen and fetch some drinking water. As soon as Arun left the room, he asked Acharya Suresh and Lalan if Arun had a brother in Canada. Yes, Baba, Lalan replied. His brother is teaching in a medical college in Canada. Don't say anything to Arun when he comes back. But his brother has just this moment been involved in a terrible accident. The car that he was driving has just had a head-on collision with a truck. He is still alive, but he is badly injured. His ribs have been caved in and he has sustained a severe head injury. As Baba said this, images of the accident flashed in the minds of those present. Lalan and Suresh, who were both close friends of Arun's other brother, Sujit, cried out in dismay. Baba, please do something to save him. Otherwise the family will suffer. Their brother is the family's only means of support. If he dies, they will be in great trouble. For several long moments, Baba didn't say anything. His eyes appeared to be unfocused, as if he were still gazing at the scene of the accident, more than 7,000 miles away. Finally, he said, "Meet me at my house in the evening before field walk. I will tell you then. In the meantime, do not tell Arun what has happened." That evening, Baba told him that there had been no use in saving him. His skull was badly smashed, and his brain was damaged. I could have saved his life, but his brain would not have been able to function properly. It was better he take a new body, with new vigor, and work for humanity. But don't worry about his family. They will not undergo undue hardship. I will see to that. Baba then told Pranay to send a telegram to Sujit in South India, where he had been posted for Prachar, informing him of the accident and asking him to come back to take care of his family. The next morning, Baba returned to the Jagrati and gave a talk on death. Everyone who takes birth in this universe has to die, he said. It is a perfectly natural process, and there is no reason to be afraid of it. He asked Arun to stand up and repeat some of the salient points of his talk. Afterward, he called Arun to his room and broke the sad news. Later that day, a telegram arrived for Arun with the news of his brother's death. Late that summer, Baba overhauled the whole-timer system that Satyananda had begun. Whole-timer candidates would from then on be considered sannyasi trainees until they received their Avaduta initiation. By the fall, there was at least one whole-timer in every state, with Bengal and Bihar broken down into zones, each with their own whole-timer. Through these young monks, the organization was in the process of spreading to every corner of India. The rapid growth of the organization became a source of pride for the disciples, but not everyone was happy with the increasingly important role that the sannyasis were playing. Baba now began spending more and more time with his monastic disciples, encouraging and guiding them, and delegating to them much of the responsibility for implementing his many new plans and programs, a responsibility that had formerly rested with the householder disciples. Some of these, most notably Pranay, began to feel that their authority and prestige was being usurped by this band of young newcomers, despite the fact that the family people had been the ones to build up the organization. One day, Pranay and Dasarath went to Baba to complain that Satyananda was abusing his authority by not informing the General Secretary of his and the other whole-timers' activities, thus making it difficult for the family acharyas to do their work. The next morning, Baba called Satyananda and informed him of the charges. "We are going to have a meeting about it this evening. Come fully prepared. I am going to scold you in front of them." That evening in the Jagrati, Baba gave Satyananda a dressing down in front of Pranay and a group of important family acharyas. This went a long way toward appeasing their hurt feelings. After the meeting, Baba called Satyananda to his room and told him not to worry. "Don't pay any attention to what anyone says. Your work is coming along nicely. Go ahead with full speed and don't look back." A few days later, Baba called Chandranath and Ram Tanuk and asked them to work directly with Satyananda to help him establish the new sannyasi structure. Afterward, Pranay was more openly cordial to Satyananda, convinced that Baba had taken his point. But the rapid rise of the monastic structure continued unabated. The new cadre of whole-timers would be the key to spreading Baba's mission throughout the world in the years to come. In mid-August, Baba went to Ranchi to conduct the DMC. Unable to get time off of work, Acharya Kamalakanta could not attend the program. His 5-year-old daughter, Sujata, was sorely disappointed when she heard the news. She began pestering her father. "Dad, if we can't go there, then please go and bring Baba back here. I want to see Baba." Kamalakanta's wife tried to explain to her daughter that her father had important work to attend to. He could not bring Baba this time, but he surely would the next time. Sujata was not easily pacified. "Why can't you bring Baba here? I want to see him now. Baba goes to everyone else's house. Why can't he come to ours?" Nothing they could say would console the determined child. After the program was over, Baba returned to Jamalpur by car. During the trip, he kept asking repeatedly for water, far more than he normally did. Before long, they ran out of drinking water, but Baba was still thirsty. "Baba, there's no more water," Pranay said. "I'm sorry. As soon as we find a good place to stop, I will try to find some good drinking water." They traveled a ways further without finding a suitable place to stop. Baba began to grow impatient. He insisted that Pranay stop the car at some Margi's house where he could get a drink. Pranay consulted with the other Margis in the car. At that moment, they were passing through Bakri Barama, where Acharya Kamalakanta lived. One of them knew the address, so they turned off toward the house. When the surprised Acharya and his wife found Baba at their door, they asked him to take a seat. At Pranay's behest, they ran into the kitchen to bring a cool glass of water. No, not yet," Baba said when they handed him the glass. "I will drink a little later. First I want to see Sujata." A few moments later, Sujata came running in to see Baba. Baba patted her on the head and said, "So, Sujata, are you happy now? Your Baba has come to see you." On September 15, Baba held a DMC in Gorakhpur. Numerous well-known personalities from the upper social strata of the city attended the program, indicative of Anandamarga's growing reputation in northern India. The organization, which had begun with Baba's fellow railway employees and members of the BMP, was now seeing more and more lawyers, doctors, politicians, and wealthy businessmen enter through its doors. None of them, however, received any preferential treatment from Baba. As usual, Baba took advantage of the darshans, PCs, and fieldwalks in Gorakhpur to point out the ethical shortcomings of his followers and provide them with suitable blows to their ego. When Acharya Pratapaditya saw Baba scolding several prestigious members of the community, some of them his initiates, he became concerned. He went to talk to Baba privately about it. "Baba, if you punish all such highly placed, prestigious people in this way, who is going to stay in Anandamarga?" "I cannot discriminate between people on this basis," Baba said. "What this organization needs in order to grow successfully is purification. If the people I punish become strict about the ideology, then everyone is benefited. But if they feel otherwise and leave, then that also benefits the organization." Baba confided in him that hard times for the organization were coming in the not-too-distant future. Fair-weathered disciples, those attracted by Baba's personality or the growing reputation of Anandamarga, but not firmly dedicated to the ideology, would not remain. Back in Jamalpur, Akori and Dr. Ramesh accompanied Baba on fieldwalk, during which they briefed him on the progress of the children's home in Patna and on arrows in general. At one point, Baba stopped and said, "The conflict between us and the dogmatic pundits will bring us hard times in the near future. But our last and greatest enemies will be the government and the communists. They will torture and beat our Margi brothers and sisters simply for being Margis. People will be afraid to admit they are Margis. If they do, they will be humiliated, threatened, and imprisoned. Will you stick by me when that happens?" The Margis pledged that they will stand by Baba no matter what. "Are you sure?" Baba asked again. "Hard times are coming soon, and a lot of work will need to be done in the meantime." Again they reaffirmed their vow. The religion developed by the Brahmins is not true Dharma, he went on to say. It was developed by them to fulfill their own interests. It is based on selfishness, and hence cannot give the people what they need. As regards communism, Marx was a good person, a thoughtful person, and a prophet for the poor. As Baba said this, he brought his folded palms to his chest. But his theory is completely impractical. Hence its downfall is certain. It will collapse in your lifetime. Capitalism makes people beggars, but communism makes them animals. It deprives them of their thinking capacity. At the end of the conversation, Baba told him that when it came time for communism to collapse, he would also leave. Shortly before the Gorakhpur DMC, Baba called Satyananda to his room and asked him to go to Behala, a suburb of Calcutta, to convey a message to Gopen. Satyananda, make him understand this time. Let him know that this is his last chance. The message was essentially the same as the one Baba had sent through Satyananda the previous year, when he warned Gopen to stop misusing his powers and instead help the organization with its missionary work. At the time, Gopen had replied, Satyananda, you know very well that Baba does not depend on anyone. He has come with a mission and he will get it done. If human beings don't help him, he will get the cows and goats to do it. Baba's brow had darkened when Satyananda told him of Gopen's response, but he had said nothing more at the time. The problem had begun after Gopen's transfer to Patna in 1961. He collected a circle of followers there that included 2 family acharyas. They called their circle Madhu Chakra to differentiate it from the Dharma Chakra of Anandamarga. With the powers that Gopen had gained through his sadhana and frequent samadhis, he would tell people's future, give solutions to their difficulties, and counsel them in their spiritual practices and family affairs. The Margis who encircled him became so enamored of his spiritual gifts and palpable charisma that they stopped going to see Baba in Jamalpur or participating in Anandamarga activities. In an interview, Acharya Kishori Devi recounted some of her experiences with Gopen in Patna in the early 60s. I took initiation in 1960 from Gopenda, 15 days after my husband. When he was giving me my first lesson, he went into trance and suddenly I saw Baba sitting in front of me. I did meditation for 20 minutes. When I opened my eyes, I saw that Baba was still sitting there. I prostrated before him. He said, Mother, get up. I said, please, I am your daughter. He said, yes, you are my daughter, but I will call you Mother. When Gopenda and his wife moved to Patna, they stayed with us for a while. Gopenda used to remain in trance all the time then. He used to dance on one foot, and a sweet fragrance used to come from his body. His wife objected to his meditation. Margis used to come and garland him, touch his feet, and have his darshan. His wife complained that they were disturbing her husband and will break his heart. His face looked like Baba's at that time. While he was staying with us, I used to see divine light in my meditation and had many other experiences. I had 2 young daughters then, my first 2 children. Poonam was 1.5 years old, and the other was only a few months old. One day during General Darshan in Patna, Poonam ran to the dais and touched Baba's feet. People shouted for me to control her. I went up and grabbed her, but I also touched Baba's feet, and so did the daughter on my lap. Afterward, Gopen told me that since they were so young, they would either die or become great meditators. 15 days before they died, a saint came to my door. I told him to please wait. I would just go inside and bring something for him. He said, no, I don't want anything. I have come to tell you that your daughters will die soon. You have a strong attachment to them, so they have to go. Some days later, they came down with smallpox. One day, while they were dying, they were sitting on Gopenda's wife's lap. The window suddenly opened, and a halo of light entered. It enveloped them, and at that moment they died. Satyananda left for Behala as instructed and attended the Sunday sitting of the Madhu Chakra. Once the collective meditation concluded, he conveyed Baba's message. Gopen remained silent, but the other members of the group started reviling Satyananda. Offended by their insults, he left and took the night train back to Jamalpur. He met Baba in the Jagrati before office hours and described what had happened. "Baba, I would not go back there, never again," he said, still offended by his ill treatment. Baba turned to Pranay and asked him to bring a piece of paper and a pen. "Pranay, draft a telegram to Gopen and send it immediately. State in the telegram that his acharyaship is suspended from this day henceforth, and that I, Anandamurti, withdraw all his spiritual power from this very moment." Not long afterward, the news started trickling back from Calcutta that Gopen had lost his abilities. His followers had begun deserting him one by one. Soon he stopped attending the Behala meditation, which by then had dropped the name Madhu Chakra, as well as all Anandamarga activities and functions in the metropolitan area. On December 12, Baba arrived in Calcutta for a DMC program, accompanied by Satyananda. He was brought to the residence of Manohar Lal Gupta, who would be his host during his stay. While a car was being ready to take Baba for his morning walk, he asked Satyananda if he knew Gopen's address. "No, Baba." "Then find out, and keep it in strictest confidence. I wish to see Gopen this morning, but no one should know that I am going there." Manohar Lal Gupta knew the address. He accompanied Baba and Satyananda and gave directions to the driver as they made their way toward Behala. When they arrived at Gopen's residence, Baba and Manohar remained in the car while Satyananda climbed the stairs to Gopen's second-floor apartment. When he knocked on the door, Gopen opened it, dressed only in a towel, still wet from his morning bath. When Gopen heard the news that Baba was downstairs in the car, waiting to see him, he ran straight down the stairs without bothering to put on any clothes. He fell at Baba's feet weeping. "Baba, please forgive me, he stammered over and over again, while the passerby paused to gape at the odd sight. Baba comforted him, and Gopen quickly entered into a state of samadhi. He was still in samadhi when Satyananda carried him in his arms back up to his apartment, as if he were carrying a sleeping child. Baba would have no more cause to complain about Gopen's behavior in the future. One of the obstacles Baba had to face in his rapid push to accelerate the growth of the organization was the willingness of parents to use whatever means possible to prevent their children from becoming sannyasis. In one such case, the parents even went to the extreme of filing a case against Baba. Amit was the son of wealthy parents. When he graduated from the Bihar Institute of Technology in the summer of 1962, his father, Sirdan Singh, then income tax commissioner at Calcutta, secured a position for him in a prestigious Calcutta firm. A few months later, however, he resigned his job and came to Jamalpur to be a whole-timer. His parents were mortified by his decision. They came to Jamalpur several times to try and convince him to come back with them. Satyananda, wary of the problems they could pose for the organization, cooperated with them. He even posted Amit in Jamalpur to facilitate their visits. But Amit was adamant about his intentions to become a monk. When he reached the age of 21, he entered the training center. There was nothing more his parents could do, or so he thought. At the beginning of December 1963, Sirdan Singh filed kidnapping charges in Mongir court against Baba and Pranay. By then, Amit had taken Avaduta initiation and received the monastic name Amitananda. He was posted in the southern state of Kerala, though at the time that the charges were being processed, he was in Anandanagar preparing for the year-end VSS camp and the New Year DMC. After the charges were processed, constables came to inform Baba and Pranay of the charges and require them to appear in court to give their bail plea. Pranay sent a messenger to Begusarai to apprise Ramtanuk and Baidyanath Singh both advocates of the situation. Then he took Baba by car to Munger. Pranay asked Baba to wait outside in the shade of a towering mango tree while he went inside to inform the court that he and Baba had arrived. He was led into the courtroom of Bal Mukunda Rastogi, to whose court the case had been assigned. When Rastogi, a longtime Margi and staunch disciple, saw Pranay and had the papers handed to him by the bailiff, he was horrified. "Where is Baba?" he asked Pranay, jumping up out of his seat. When Pranay informed him that Baba was waiting in the car under the mango tree, he hurried outside as fast as he could. "What game are you playing with me, Baba?" he asked. "Why are you coming in front of your disciple as an accused? I cannot bear the thought of you having to stand in the witness box." "Don't worry, Bal Mukunda," Baba said. "That won't happen. Everything will be fine. But you will have to be patient for 2 years." Rastogi went back to his courtroom and signed the papers for Baba's bail. Baba was able to return to Jamalpur without having to set foot in the courthouse. Ramtanuk and Baidinath arrived the next day. They met with Rastogi and began processing the paperwork for the case. After the New Year DMC, Amitananda filed a statement in the Munger court that he was not a minor and had become a monk of his own volition. The case by then had become headline news throughout the country. Amitananda accompanied Ramtanuk to Delhi to meet the Home Minister. After their meeting, the charges were dismissed and Amitananda went back to his post in Kerala. As Baba had foreshadowed, Bal Mukunda Rastogi would face severe tribulations in his professional life over the next 2 years, in part due to his being the judge associated with the case. When the 2 years ended, so did his difficulties. Shortly after the case was thrown out, Amitananda's father began printing anti-Anandamarga leaflets and distributing them by sending them to legislative members in different parts of the country. The leaflets contained allegations that included mesmerism and the kidnapping of minors. A superintendent in the district's attorney's office in Patna showed the leaflet to Rameshwar Baita, who brought it to Jamalpur to show Baba. Baba laughed when he saw it. "The sun is yellow," he said. "Can anyone say that it is black? They may try and do so, but it doesn't make it any less the yellow." A few months later, Baba was traveling by train with Devi Chand to attend a DMC program. While the train was stopped at a station along the way, a man appeared on the platform outside the window where Baba was sitting and pressed a loaded revolver to Baba's ear. Baba looked at the man impassively. Devi Chand remained frozen in his seat, unable to react. Suddenly, Baba snatched the revolver from the man's hand and said, "This is the 3rd time you have tried to harm me, and still you can do nothing. This gun belongs to your friend, a DSP, Deputy Superintendent of Police. If I turn the gun over to the IG, Inspector General of Police, what do you think will happen to you then?" The shocked assailant was unable to say anything, but Devi Chand could see the fear on his face. "I am going to let you go," Baba said, "because your son Amitananda is a sannyasi in my mission, but let this be the last time." Amitananda's father fled the scene and never troubled Baba again. At the end of December, Baba sent word that he wanted the Anandanagar Primary School to open on the 2nd of January. At that moment, hundreds of disciples were attending the year-end VSS camp in Anandanagar underneath a huge tent that had been erected as a temporary shelter. The local volunteers held an emergency meeting and decided to start classes in the tent immediately following the program. They also began construction of 2 buildings, a hostel and a school building. In the meantime, back in Jamalpur, Baba began asking for daily progress reports. Money was scarce, however, and one day, Abhedananda, who had recently become Baba's personal assistant, was forced to inform Baba that the work was delayed due to lack of funds. Baba glowered at him and said, "The work of Anandamarga will never stop due to financial problems. Look there." Baba pointed to a rack that moments before had been empty. Abhedananda and his 3 companions were startled to see the rack filled with precious jewels, gold, and silver. Abhedananda fell at Baba's feet. Again Baba repeated, this time in a softer tone of voice, that the work of Anandamarga will never stop due to financial problems. Under this constant pressure from Baba, the buildings were erected and made functional within 1 month. Margi families from Patna and other cities started sending their children to study there, alongside the village children who streamed in each day from the surrounding area. For most of the village children, it was their first opportunity to get an education. Classes began with grade 1s through 4, and in late March, Sujit pushed through their application with the State Board of Education to extend the instruction up to grade 8. Baba paid his first visit to Anandanagar on March 6 and stayed until the 10th. While he was there, he inspected the existing buildings and gave detailed plans for the future development of the project. He chose a spot for a hospital, whose construction began as soon as Baba left, and he laid the foundation stone for a technical college, which he christened with the acronym AMIT, Anandamarga Institute of Technology. He also chose the sites for a future liberal arts college, veterinary college, naturopathic and Ayurvedic clinics, agricultural research center, various cottage industries, and offices for the different wings of Anandamarga. He suggested to the volunteers that they use an inexpensive type of construction that would be good for at least 8 to 10 years, a foreshadowing of things to come. Along with detailed planning that Baba dictated as he walked, he kept up a ceaseless commentary on the natural and cultural history of the area, a practice that he continued during the morning darshans underneath a palash tree. He talked about Rar, which he considered the cradle of human civilization, and told the Margis that they would find many precious archaeological artifacts on their land, including the remains of an indigenous Indian civilization much older than the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilizations. He also said that they would find many fossils there, explaining that Anandanagar had long been an area of hot springs and mineral salts. For that reason, it was an ideal environment for the preservation of fossils. Just as human beings have common graveyards, he said, so did the ancient dinosaurs and mammoths. Before he left, he took them to a hill that he revealed to be a huge fossilized mound of bones. Above all, Baba paid special attention to the rich spiritual heritage of the region. He explained that the nearby village of Chpt was a corruption of the original Sanskrit Chaitanyamukha, meaning face towards consciousness. It was so named because this area was home to the earliest practitioners of spiritual meditation on the planet. In response to an unvoiced question of Sujit's, who had been wondering why Baba had chosen such a solitary place for his future headquarters, Baba explained that this area of Anandanagar was highly spiritually vibrated. In the distant past, it had been home to a great school of Jain Tantra, whose center had been situated on the bank of the Kemsavati River, which wound through the center of Anandanagar. Its influence had spread Tantra for a far distance on both banks of the river. Many sadhakas had attained liberation while meditating in these solitary wastelands, and the places they chose for their meditation had become Tantrapitas, seats of Tantra, coveted by yogis for their meditation, since it was well known that the vibrations left by a realized saint at the place of their practice would greatly benefit any yogi who meditated there, even centuries afterward. In fact, Baba told them, the entire Anandanagar area, framed by the Kamsavati and Subarnareka river basins, could itself be considered a Tantrapita. It was home to over 70 individual Tantrapitas, where sadhakas of different traditions in different eras had achieved enlightenment. While the volunteers who came to live and work in Anandanagar found it to be an ideal place to pursue their spiritual practices, it was also full of mundane challenges. among them the constant presence of scorpions and snakes, many of them poisonous. Baba assured Sujit that the scorpions would not bother them, and this proved true. But snakes were a bigger concern. One had to be constantly on the lookout, especially at night when the chances of stepping on a snake without seeing it would keep people from venturing out. Every year, several villagers in the surrounding areas would die from venomous snake bites. The workers found snakes in their beds when they retired for the night, and on their mosquito nets when they woke up in the morning. Once the first students had been admitted into the newly constructed hostel, they became concerned that if any of the students were bitten, the guardians might withdraw their children and the schools would get a bad reputation. One day, shortly after Baba's first visit, Acharya Swarupananda, then posted to Anandanagar as a teacher, went to Jamalpur to ask for Baba's help. "All right," Baba said, "I will teach you a certain mantra. If there is any case of snakebite, use the mantra and no harm will come to the person. Come tomorrow night at 10 or 11 and I will teach you. And come prepared." Swarupananda had no idea what Baba meant by prepared. The next night, when he came to Baba's room, Baba said, "Did you take a bath?" "I took one at noon, Baba." "No, you must take a bath before you come here. Take a bath, do sadhana, and then come to me." "All right, come again tomorrow." The next night, Swarupananda took a bath and went to Baba's room. "Did you take your Guru mantra before sitting?" Baba asked. "No, I forgot," Swarupananda replied. "Well, then I can't teach you tonight." For the next several nights, Baba put Swarupananda off with similar tests. Finally, one night he seemed ready to give him the mantra. "Before I give you this mantra, there are some conditions." "What are they, Baba?" "They are very simple. The first is that if you come to know of any case of snakebite, you must rush immediately to that place and help the patient. The second is that if someone dies of snakebite, it will be your responsibility." "Baba, how can I take such a big responsibility?" "If I am to teach you this mantra, you must accept the responsibility." Swarupananda thought about it for a few moments. He was about to agree when Baba said, "Rather than giving you a mantra, would it not be better if from now on the snakes at Anandanagar didn't bite anyone?" "Yes, Baba, that would be best." "Then go and tell everyone there that nobody will die of snakebite in Anandanagar. Only, do not harm them, or else they may bite. But even then, you will not die from it." Swarupananda did as instructed. From that day on, there was no case of snakebite within the boundaries of Anandanagar. Though the snakes continued to be their constant companions for some years more until the development of the project, and the influx of people gradually convinced the creatures to migrate to less populated areas. There continued to be occasional cases of snakebite among the villagers, but they would bring the patient to the Anandanagar hospital and none of them died. A few years later, a police outpost was erected near the Jagrati building, and the police began behaving badly with the sannyasis and the students. After 2 months, there were so many cases of snakebite in their camp that they packed up and left. Before they left, the local villagers pointed out to them that there were so many sannyasis and students of different ages at Anandanagar, yet none of them had ever been bitten by a snake. "You must have some bad intention," they said. "That is why God is punishing you." Thank you.